In our first video for Unit 5, Topic 5, our goal is to understand and make ratios. We're going to be talking about ratios today. Evidence-wise, we're going to define what a ratio even is. We're going to make a Freyr model in a second. And then we're going to make some ratios. I have some fun data for you guys, because I think it's fun, to look at, so we'll do that. Learning experience is there. Most of it's the same as always. But again, we're doing a Freyr model, so make sure you've got something ready to write on and with, so you can copy it into your math spiral or whatever you take notes on. So first thing, we are going to make a Freyr model. The word that we're going to define is ratio. So pause the video, draw yourself a Freyr model, leave a space for the definition, characteristics, examples, and non-examples, and then we'll unpause and continue. As for me, I'm just going to keep talking because I assume you paused. So our definition for ratio: a ratio compares two quantities. Now, what is a quantity? Well, it's just an amount of something. It has another math word as well, word meaning as well. But in terms of what we're using it for now, just know that's an amount of something. So a ratio compares two quantities. Again, as we go through our Freyr model, write it into your Freyr model, which you should have copied down. Characteristics and definition-wise, facts-wise rather, you can only compare two quantities at a time. There's no way to use a ratio and compare three quantities at the same time. You can use them to compare three different things, but then you need a number of ratios instead of just one, which is what we're going to work with. And there are three different representations you can use. You can either use the word two, you can use the two dots there, that's a colon, or you can just write it as a fraction. Personally, I think the fractions are the most useful ones for reasons that you'll see later in this unit. But you're free to use whichever form of a ratio you want. So let's make some ratios then. So an example that you could use is if you have like 2 bananas and 3 apples. If we want to compare bananas to apples, we would have 2 to 3. 2 bananas to 3 apples. You could write this using the colon, 2 to 3, or you could write this as a fraction, 2 over 3, 2/3. Any one of those works. It doesn't matter. You just have to be careful of making sure that the correct number matches up with the thing you have first, the first term, and that you use one of these three representations. If we wanted to compare apples to bananas instead, we would just switch them, so we'd have something like 3 to 2, or 3 to 2, or 3 halves. Any of those work as well, just so you know. In terms of what doesn't work, in terms of our non-examples, the main thing that I see people do is they go 3 or 2 to 3. That doesn't work because that looks like you're subtracting, in which case you'd end up with a -1. That's not what we want to do. We do not want to use a dash like that. That is not going to work. Again, the other main concern that I see people making is that they try to compare more than two quantities. So for example, if you wanted to compare bananas, apples, and oranges, and you had 2 bananas, 3 apples, and 5 oranges, again, you can't do that. That does not work. So don't try it. Again, pause the video if you need to write any of this down. I did go through it fairly quickly, but that's because I know that you can pause the video whenever you need to catch up on stuff. Pause if you need. So how do we make a ratio now that we know what it is? Well, let's look at this scenario. Mr. H, that's me, Mr. H's last video has 180 views as of when I'm recording this. 68 of those views came from subscribers, while 112 came from people who aren't subscribed yet. This is actually real data as of when I'm making this. 37% of you are subscribed versus the other 62.2-ish. But let's consider these numbers. So we are going to make 3 different ratios. The first ratio is going to be of subscribers to non-subscribers. So what we want to make sure that we do is we identify that we have 68 subscribers and that we have 112 people who are not subscribed yet. Okay. Next, we see that subscribers comes first in this word problem. So we're going to use the number that represents the number of subscribers who are watching first, and then the number of non-subscribers second. The last part is just to choose whichever representation for a ratio you want to use. If you want to use the 2, if you want to use the colon, or if you want to use a fraction. I'm going to just use 2 for this example. And that's it. That's all you got to do. In the second example that we have here, we're finding the ratio of non-subscribers to subscribers. So it's just the reverse. And again, it's just as easy as well. All we have to say is that we have 112 people not subscribed, 68 people who are subscribed, and then we can pick one of our representations to show a ratio. This time I use the colon just to show that you could use any of them. The last one, subscribers to everybody. Sometimes you have 3 different options of stuff to compare, but remember you can only compare 2 things at a time. So this time we have subscribers, which we said was 68, to the total number of views, which was 180. And again, we did it as a different representation. This time we wrote it as a fraction, 68 180ths. You could actually simplify this if you want. We are not going to at the moment, but you can if you so choose. So pause the video if you need to take any notes again, and then we're going to do you are going to do a you-do. In our you-do for today, you have a fast food restaurant who sells 13 cheeseburgers, 10 orders of chicken nuggets, and 18 orders of fries. You are going to write ratios to describe each of the scenarios: cheeseburgers to chicken nuggets, fries to cheeseburgers, and cheeseburgers to fries. So pause the video, make your 3 ratios now. Things to remember from this video. First off, did you write down the definition for a ratio? Did you do the Frere model? If you didn't, rewind the video right now and do so. That's incredibly important. This entire unit is about ratios, and the second half is about a more specific type of ratio called a rate, but the same idea. Remember that you can only compare 2 things at a time, 2 quantities at a time, and that to represent them, you have 3 options. You can use the word 2, you can use a colon, or you can use a fraction. It doesn't matter which one you choose. It's totally your preference. I think fractions are the best, personally. I feel there's a 4th thing to remember to do, but I don't remember what it was. But maybe you can think of it. So some suggested practice problems for the end of the video. In a classroom, you have 14 male students, 16 female students, and 2 teachers. You are going to write ratios for each of the following 5 scenarios. You'll notice the number 5. You have to compare it to everybody in the classroom. I didn't give you that number, so you have to figure out how to find it. Yeah, give these a shot. Pause the video, and good luck.